Okay, guys, welcome back. Hope you all had a good break after, at least from this class, after this exam. The GSIs are busily finishing up grading of the short answer, and the multiple choice is done already, but we need to enter it still. Our goal is always to have grades posted by 1 week after the exam. So hopefully on Wednesday morning, I'll come here and tell you that the grades will be posted, say, by noon on Wednesday, okay? If you haven't taken the exam yet, and we do not know that, that is a big problem. So get in touch with me and your GSIs as soon as possible, okay? A couple other announcements. One, I just sent a B-Space thingy about RPP. If you recall, you have to do 1 RPP credit before the phase 1 deadline, which is October 20th. It's just a weird phase thing that has to do with researchers. Nothing for you to worry about, except you do need to do one soon if you haven't already done so in order to get full credit for your RPP portion of your grade in this class. The idea is we want to incentivize students and not wait till the last minute to do their RPP, because then, the last week of RPP, people are just roaming the halls in Pullman, looking for experiments, which is not good for anyone, okay? Other questions about anything? We good? Okay, now we are done with the first unit, obviously, and I've told you that the exams are non-cumulative, technically speaking, okay, but it's not as if all those things we learned about social cognition are out the door, because you're going to see those ideas come up again and again, and you will need to know them. It's going to be sort of background knowledge for you as you learn and add more to your knowledge base about social psychology, okay? So while you'll never, ever have to read chapters 1 through 4, again, you will hopefully already know that stuff without having to study it anymore, okay? Today, through the next 2 or 3 lectures, depending on how quickly I'm able to go, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics in social psychology, which is the self-concept, okay? This turned out to be a favorite topic of many people, and you know this because if you go into any bookstore and go into the psychology section in the bookstore, there's a heck of a lot that focuses on the self, self-esteem, actualizing the self, being your authentic self, all sorts of things related to the people, how we see ourselves, the people we think we are, the people we worry others think we are, and so on and so forth. What we're going to be doing for most of today is talking about where our knowledge about the self comes from. We'll then talk about some theories that talk about how the self, all the self-knowledge that we have, is stored in memory, self-schemas. Okay, see how we're not going away from that stuff. And then we'll briefly talk about presentations of the self, which is very intuitive, what we do to convey certain images about ourselves, and you'll get to talk more about that sort of fun topic in section as well. Okay, so to get us going on this topic of the self, what I wanted to first do is have you for a moment think about yourselves. This is a widely used task. I wouldn't be surprised if some of you have actually completed it in some sort of psychology experiment. It's called the 20 statements task. It's now called the 8 statements task for the purposes of this class, but it's typically you're given 20 blank lines, and you're asked basically to dump the contents of your head having to do with who you think you are. So I want you to spend a minute here answering the question, who am I, to yourself, and answer 8 steps, I am, write down 8 things, or type out 8 things for a second, and then we'll do a little bit of analyzing of the content of your self-concept. Okay, hopefully that was an easy task for most people. Here's some of the kinds of things that researchers code for in terms of the content of people's lists, their I am statements. Okay, so researchers interested in the self-concept are going to code for different kinds of things, and we'll be going through various examples of this as we go throughout today's and maybe even into the 3rd unit of the course. But researchers might be interested in the kinds of traits you listed. Okay, especially in our culture, in Western cultures, we're very likely to think about ourselves in terms of trait characteristics. Maybe some of you indicated preferences you have, things you like. You're somebody who really likes psychology, or someone who really hates psychology. Some of you may have indicated your dreams, your hopes, your wishes, who you hope to be. You hope to graduate, you hope to be a doctor, you hope to have a family someday. Social identities is something that people often list, and what I mean by that are your social group memberships. I'm a Cal student. I am a soccer player. I am in such and such ASUC organization, whatever. Social roles that you might have. You're a big brother, you're a big sister, you're a mentor. Evaluations, if you feel positively, negatively about yourself. This starts veering a little bit close to self-esteem, which we will talk about in length as well. Emotional states you might be feeling. I'm guessing some of you out there put I am tired. Physical descriptions are a big one. I'm tall, I'm white, I have black hair, what have you. I'm curious, because we're going to come back to it in a moment. I'm curious, if you can turn your eye clickers on a second. I'm curious for a reason you'll see in about 8 slides. If you guys can do a little bit of a count of how many traits you listed of your 8, I'd be really curious. So look down and see how many traits you listed, like you're sensitive, you're kind, you're irritable, you're mean, whatever it is you listed as traits, and indicate which one. There's no obviously right or wrong answer here. This is just a little data collection on my part. And we'll come back to this. But do get your eye clicker response in. There will be, I think, 1 or 2 other ones this class, but it's good to get one in now. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I am a little bit curious. Let's see. Okay, A or B, so on the lower side, some of you put D. Let me hide the results. So on average, probably 3-ish traits is my guess, not all, which is actually, we'll talk about this more in a minute, is actually probably on the high side compared to participants who engage in this task maybe in other cultures. We'll come back to this. Okay, what I want to talk about is you just listed, I think rather easily, all these different dimensions of your self-concept. A good amount of traits for a good number of you, but all different other kinds of self-knowledge, maybe even kinds of self-knowledge that I did not give you categories for as examples. What we're going to focus on today is where does all this self-knowledge come from? Okay, you didn't have all this self-knowledge when you were 2 months old, okay, or 3 months old, and your self-knowledge changes over time. I'm sure there's been some self-change that's happened as, when you joined Cal, now that you've been here 2, 3, 4 years. Where does this content come from? How did you learn who you are? How did you come to decide that those 8 things that you wrote is truth about yourself? What are some examples of sources of self-knowledge? Volunteers? Ideas? Yeah.
Your parents said socialization.
Okay, socialization, parents, but can also include all kinds of sources. like parents, teachers, siblings, family, uncles, aunts, okay? We'll talk more about how exactly they give us self-knowledge. Do they say, you are this? Maybe sometimes, maybe not in those exact words, but through their actions and reactions they make. Yeah? Okay, reflected selves, reflected appraisals, which we're going to talk about. So this is what again? What are reflected selves, reflected appraisals? It's how we think other people see us. Okay, it's our inferences about how other people see us, which may not be accurate. Okay, but we have these inferences, these appraisals anyway. Okay, so both of these are these outside social sources of the self. What else? Where else do you get your self-knowledge from? How do you know what to write down, what you wrote down? Judy, self-schema? Well, where did you get the knowledge to put in your self-schema? I mean, in some ways, you could have a schema. Maybe you decided you are extroverted, and from that basis, you could make inferences given what you know about extroverted. So yes, from that basis, yeah. Yeah, okay. Experience. Give me an example of experience. Yeah. Experiences, okay? Acute experiences, but lifelong experiences as well. Where you grew up. You know, the people around you. Is it dangerous around you? Is it not dangerous around you? Is it a city environment? Is it not a city environment? What other examples? Yeah. Peer relationship, in-group membership. Can you give it a concrete example? It's a great example if you're Jewish. Yeah, I grew up in a Jewish town on the East Coast, and I even became a little Jewish, frankly. I mean, given the environment. But you know, my much younger sister went to nursery school at the Jewish Community Center, so we had challah every Friday night. I mean, this affected. We sang Dreidel Dreidel. Come out and play, however that song goes. But yeah, I mean, this was a big part of the environment, a big part of socialization. Yeah, in-group or group memberships. Okay, one more example. No right or wrong answers. Yeah. Say again? Environment. What are you referring to? Okay, you were talking about like momentary context, right? The particular context that you're in, and that's wonderful. I mean, that is probably, I mean, that is the environment we as social psychologists sort of care the most about in a lot of ways, okay? You know, maybe other social scientists might be interested in broader forces, like what nation you grew up in. We're interested in the social context that you happen to be in. So right now, look down your list. How many of you wrote something related to being a Cal student, a student, or psych major? How many? Oh, come on. Okay. Maybe 2/3, a little overestimate perhaps. But the idea is that had you filled this out at home, sitting around with your friends on a Friday night or at a bar, to be a more extreme example, my guess is the same. Your list wouldn't look exactly the same. Okay, context, momentary context matters. Okay, these are all great. We're going to dive into each one a little bit deeper, as well as a couple other possible sources of self-knowledge. So let's go through these. I think I have about 6 or 7. I think all of which you guys have also listed. Okay, the first one is perhaps the most obvious, but I'm going to mention it anyway, and that's introspection. That's sitting there mindfully with controlled thinking. Okay, it's not automatic introspection, thinking about who you are, like I asked you to engage in to do the who am I task. I mean, one of the things that could happen when you're introspecting is that you can actually discover things about yourself that you didn't realize until you engage in that introspection. So I think a great example is that some of you may be doing your first research assistant position ever. And maybe in trying to listen to my instructions for this task, you listed, I am an RA. And going through this process might make you sort of discover, maybe over repeated times of introspection, that, oh my God, I think of myself as sort of a researcher, a scientist, something that you develop over time, this identity or self as a researcher. So some of who we are can come about through mindful, controlled introspection, and it might not just be sort of introspecting about the obvious things you are, but might also involve discovering things about who you are, okay, in the process of introspection. Okay, second one brings us to some of the things that you wanted to put out of your mind from the first unit of the course, attributions. We already talked about the self-serving attributional bias and how that can feed into who we are, okay, how we think about ourselves. You know, if I constantly am, you know, protecting myself and taking credit for my successes and denying responsibility for my failures, this feeds into part of who I am. I always give this great example, at least in my life. I don't mean it's great, like cool, but a really real example from my life is that I have an older sister as well, who is just a year older than I. So we did a lot of comparing growing up, and we engaged in a lot of activities together. We were both swimmers, also for this Jewish community center. This was a very Jewish world, and she was amazing. Like she won everything. Okay, so irritating. She won everything. She was like set all the records except in one stroke, which she sort of is a token for me to set that record. Okay, but this is the Jewish community center. It's not that good. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We took what we could get. Okay, but the family and even myself, the attributions were always Annie, my sister. She won all stuff because she's like athletic. Okay, that's the attribution people made for her. For me, it was, oh, Serena, practices so hard. Okay, works really hard. Okay, cool. Okay, that seems all, not very impactful. The thing is, to this day, not only do I question my athleticism, my whole family does. And the perfect example of this is my sister and I, we are both runners now. And I kicked her butt, okay, recently. And my entire family is shocked that I can run so much faster than her. I'm 40-something years old, okay? This is still dogging me that Serena can't be athletic, okay? And even, but most importantly here, we're talking about self-knowledge, that I myself am like, oh yeah, I am more athletic than her, okay? But it's like a revelation to me. Because for so long, these attributions that I made for my own successes in athletics, my sister's successes, they fed into who I am. Okay, attributions can really have a powerful impact. The ones you make about other people on who they think of themselves, and the ones you make about yourself, or other people convey to you about how they understand your behaviors, your successes, and your failures, okay? Okay, attributions, another source of self-knowledge. Wake up? Okay. We are still in the land of social cognition. We just can't escape it, okay? And we're going to talk now about this theory called self-perception theory. And you're going to read about it in different contexts, but right now I want you to think about it in terms of a source of self-knowledge. It is this idea that just as I make inferences about who he is and she is and who he is by observing how he or she behaves, sometimes we serve as observers of our own behavior to figure out who we are, what we believe, how strongly we believe something. Now that might sound weird, okay? Because why do we have to sit there and act like an observer? Don't we just know ourselves? Well, yes, okay? That's why this theory actually focuses on things about yourself that you're not quite sure of. How do I feel about climate change? How do I feel about fracking? Let me think, I'm not sure. Then you might make observations of your own behavior. You don't sit there and make observations of your behavior about, how do I feel about my best friend? No, you don't do that. You're not going to make observations, wow, I seem to like her, I hang out with her all the time. No, okay, it's about, how do I feel about that new dorm mate? You know what, I kind of enjoy my time with her. We have a good time, yeah. Actually, I think I do like her, okay? It's about things you're not that sure of. An example that some of you might actually be feeling, some of you getting close to graduation, what are you going to do afterward? Do I really want to apply to law school? Do I really like pre-med? I don't know, I'm not sure. Well, I like it. I like reading the textbook. I always go to lecture. I never fall asleep. You might make inferences about how much you enjoy or how much you really are into pre-med by your behaviors, that you go to lecture, that you stay awake, what have you. Okay? Again, if you're really sure that you want to go pre-med, you're not going to engage in this kind of process. Okay? So self-perception theory is specifically about coming to being a source of self-knowledge when you're uncertain about your attitudes or feelings. You might observe your own behaviors and make inferences about your attitudes and feelings from those observations. Okay? And I'm going to tell you about a clever study that tested this idea. Oops, I'll step back up 1 second. Okay, here's a study testing this idea, done some 30 years ago now, 35, 34 years ago. Okay, in the study, they deliberately recruited participants who they knew, based on a pre-screening survey, a pilot or initial survey, had either very strong and very clear attitudes toward the environment, or they had very weak attitudes toward the environment. They weren't quite sure how they felt. This is in the 1980s. Right now, it's very hard to imagine someone saying, I'm anti-environment. That's very strange. But back then, maybe it was less strange. Or they weren't sure about how they felt toward the environment. Doesn't matter. Strong or weak attitudes. I'm really sure about how I feel, or I'm not so sure about my attitudes toward the environment. What was so clever about this study was they found a way to manipulate. Okay, this is social psychology cleverness in action. They found a way to manipulate, with a very simple sort of procedure, the behaviors that participants perceived of themselves. Manipulate that. Okay, and the way they did that was they asked loaded questions. Okay, so have you ever recycled before? Who can say no to this question? Okay, everyone says yes to this question. It's a loaded question. Okay, it's loaded meaning it's going to get a yes question. Just like that experiment we talk about in the confirmatory hypothesis testing, how you liven up a party. Everyone can come up with some ways to liven up a party, even if they don't typically do that. So everyone answers yes to this. And so the idea is there, you're momentarily making people perceive their behaviors as, wow, I'm a recycler. Okay, participants in the other condition were asked, do you always recycle? And questions like that. I don't care how good an environmentalist you are, it's very hard to answer yes to that question truthfully. So essentially those people are being manipulated to perceive their behaviors as being not so pro-environment. Clever, right? Simple questions, manipulating how people perceive their behaviors. What's a dependent variable in this study is what's your attitude toward the environment. So you have strong and weak attitude toward the environment people being manipulated to perceive their behaviors as being pro or anti-environment, and then measuring their attitudes toward the environment. Who's going to make inferences about their attitudes toward the environment based on their behavior, and who isn't? Basically, what are the results of the study based on what you know about self-perception theory so far, which is all you need to know right now? What's the results of the study? Someone back there? Okay, anyone. I'll take anyone. Come on, give it a try. Someone? Yes, thank you.
Those who were given loaded questions as a pro-environment were being responses that they then feel pro-environment.
Okay. She's saying those who are led to believe they're pro-environment said they're more pro-environment. I mean, they're looking at their behaviors. I recycle. I'm pro-environment. Okay, but
I feel like the ones that had a basic perception of pro or environment is manipulated way more than the ones that had from.
exactly. She said she feels that it's those who had weak attitudes that were manipulatable. Okay, they were the ones that if they were led to perceive themselves as recyclers, they say they're more pro-environment, but if they're led to say, gee, I don't always recycle, I guess I'm not that into the environment. Whereas people with strong environments, they didn't differ in their attitudes, strong attitudes to the environment, they didn't differ in their attitudes as a function of what you manipulated them. They're sure about how they feel. I hate cilantro, and I'm really, really sure of it. You can't, I don't know what you try to do to manipulate me about cilantro. Nothing you can do can make me like cilantro or make me question that I don't like it. I hate it, okay? People who have strong attitudes to the environment, they don't need to make reference to their behaviors they know already. It's only people who have weak attitudes, who aren't sure how they feel about cilantro, who aren't sure how they feel about the environment, that engage in self-perception processes. Those are the only people who were affected by the manipulation of perceptions of their behavior. Got it? Someone give me an everyday example of this phenomenon. Give me a domain that you're not so sure about and self-perception processes going on. I'll give you one totally trivial example, but we've all been there. Okay, you're sitting there and you got crumbs all over you and you look down like your sandwich is like done already and you ate it in like 1 minute and you go, man, I must have been hungry. Okay, you didn't realize you were that hungry and you make an inference. Look at what a slob and fast you ate. Okay, I must be hungry. Silly example, but that's self-perception process. Can you give me a silly example or a not so silly example? Come on, stretch yourself. I know it's Monday. Great. It's a great example. It's a great example. Okay, you sort of realize in retrospect, maybe after you've had some bad exchanges and you go back to your office, you're like, oh my God, okay, I must really be bothered more by X than I realized, or something like that. It's a terrific example. Okay, get your eye clickers out. I hope my GSIs forgive me for taking advantage of their names. Okay, what shall be following is self-perception theory most relevant to? This should be easy by this point. Ariana's perception of how much she loves her boyfriend, whom she has been dating for several years. Maya's attitude towards social psychology after having taught it many, many times. Rachel's perception of how much she likes Ethiopian food, which she tried for the first time last weekend. And Luping's opinion on being a grad student at Cal now that she's in her final year here. Which one would self-perception